Hey everyone, today's going to be a quick update. I just wanted to throw one up before I go to bed and get back to real life and work tomorrow, or I guess today. So quick update, I got to tier 11 maps, working my way up through red maps. I made some upgrades right before I made this video. So I should be able to get to tier 15 maps here pretty quick. Some quick updates. Things that I've tested out. I tested out Spark for trash clear for a bit, and I think it has potential. It also consumes cold infusions, which is huge since we generate so many, but we generate far fewer without the Ice Nova and Snap combo that I've been using. So I don't really sustain cold infusions on Spark. And then it's annoying since you don't have cold infused Sparks, just lightning, and then you're not getting any cold infusions at all unless you use Frost Bomb, or if you throw out Eye of Winter and then snap mobs when they freeze from that. It's not nearly as smooth as just using Ice Nova and Snap. So that's what I've been doing. Cold Spark is good. I think if you want to do that instead of what I'm doing, you might just need to change a few things around, but it looks like it can be pretty strong. I also tested out Triple Infusion Firestorm. It's pretty bad. Maybe with a lot of investment, it'll be good. But I'm not seeing a path there at the moment. Maybe someone else will figure it out, and if so, it looks like it could be awesome, but no good for me thus far. Cast on Elemental Ailment seems to be bugged, as far as I can tell. It says socketed spells have 1 energy per 0.1 seconds of base cast time. The base cast time of Comet is 1 second. The modified cast time is 2 seconds. I did a test against a unique enemy, activating Cast on Ailment right before fighting him. I ignited and shocked him several times and froze him once. I got 10% energy on Comet with no supports linked when I froze the unique enemy. I got 86% combined from all of the shocks and ignites from sending frost darts through flame wall. Still not enough to trigger Comet a single time for an entire boss fight in maps. According to this, when you freeze a unique enemy, it should have enough energy to cast Comet twice if it's the base cast time, or once if it's the modified cast time of 2 seconds. But instead, it's 10% of the way there. This means that you'd need to freeze a unique enemy 10 times to cast Comet a single time with Cast on Ailment with no supports. I did a few maps with it, and I triggered Comet 2 to 3 times overall throughout the entire map. Cast on Crit is at least 50 times better for triggering, if that's the way that you want to go. Hopefully they get that figured out and dialed in. I've discovered another bug as well. Chilt Ground from Ice Nova doesn't always affect enemies. One of my strats was to use Astral Projection and Encroaching Ground on Ice Nova with Fork and Ricochet on Frost Darts, because when the Frost Darts fork, they will drop the ice chunks from chilled enemies. They don't lodge in them, but they will lodge when the forked projectiles hit an enemy, or if they hit an enemy. And with Ricochet, there's a much higher chance of them lodging in. It seemed like a good thought, good experiment. Thought it would be much better for clearing. Except the Chilt Ground doesn't always work, so you don't get the ice chunks, and the damage is pretty bad. You can see the Frost Ground or the Chilt Ground spreading, but none of the enemies actually get chilled when they go through it, when they stand on it. It seems to be much more pronounced when you're using Astral Projection, specifically when you're casting far away from yourself. But I have recreated it without Astral Projection, just casting Ice Nova, and sometimes with a cold infused Ice Nova, the enemies don't get chilled on the Chilt Ground. Which is funny, because you can freeze them, but they won't get chilled. Ball Lightning and Cast on Crit instead of Comet is also quite good. It'll eat all of your fire infusions pretty quickly, which we don't use elsewhere anyway. But I think Comet is way better for single target, and for clear when it drops the big flame Comet, it's pretty sick. On to what's new with the build. We got some changes on the passive tree. I tried removing a bunch of the freeze build-up nodes and focus more on cast, speed, crit, and meta skills to do more damage, but it's just bad. You need to freeze and snap enemies to generate enough infusions for this build. Also, being able to freeze unique enemies to laser them with frost darts and drop comets from the sky is excellent. Trash clear without freeze build-up is terrible. It is an awful feeling experience. And freeze is also an excellent defensive layer. Here's a snapshot of my passive tree as it is currently. I need to get some more mana somewhere since these skills are getting quite thirsty. I've leveled up mana remnants. I might see if I can get some mana efficiency somewhere. We'll see. That is something that I need to fix on the passive tree, though, is mana. Skill changes. Here's a screenshot of a notepad with all the skills and links that I'm using now. I also have an Unleash staff that I'm using. One of my favorite things is to unleash Ice Nova on a rare mob to instantly freeze it. Since I have upgraded my staff, a lot of times that also drops a comet or 2 comets and kills it, and then I don't even need to use Ice Shards. Especially if I curse and Frost Bomb at first. It pretty much clears any rare mob, including Abyss rares in one rotation if I do need to use Frost Darts. On top of that, I can get map bosses 50% of the time in one rotation, at least for tier 10 and lower. I've been testing a bit in red maps, but I have not made it to where I wanted to be, so I'll get some more updates done over the next few days. Now that I'm back to work, I won't be playing all of the time. I've also ditched Siphon Elements, and Snap and Frost Bomb are just 100 times better for generating infusions. 7% chance on freezing an enemy per power is pretty bad. It feels pretty bad. And I don't think it's worth the spirit when you can just use Cast on Crit. Alright, so here's the breakdown for Frost Dart, Cast on Crit. Frost Dart, as it works, it shoots 3 projectiles, 5 with multi-shot support, 7 sometimes with projectiles on the passive tree and a staff. That's 7 damage instances that can each crit. You also have 2 frost chunks from each projectile that can crit. That's another 10 to 14 damage instances since you get 2 per projectile on shield enemies. And on unique enemies, they won't usually all shotgun the boss. It's not actually 10 to 14, it's somewhere around there. And then you have infused frost darts that adds an explosion, which it can also crit, so that's another 5 to 7 instances per projectile, or for 1 for each projectile. And then you have 3 frost chunks from each explosion. That's another 15 to 21 damage instances that can crit. So at 5 projectiles, you have 5 plus 10 plus 5 plus 15 for 35 damage instances in a single cast that can critically strike. At 7, it's a total of 49 damage instances in a single cast that can crit. That is a lot of critting for charging cast on crit. I do have my gripes about Frost Darts. It's kind of useless as a clearing skill. I'm sure there will be some method out there to make it good on a high budget, but as of now, not so good for clearing. And if there's trash mobs wandering about, they'll shield whatever enemy that you're trying to laser them, or with them. And if you didn't hit the trash mobs with a curse or exposure, or if it's not passing through a flame wall, then the damage is pretty terrible. But for single target, it is quite strong. On to item changes. Since yesterday, I've mostly focused on defenses to stay alive in yellow and red maps. I've got more life and energy shield now, and I overcapped my resistance for when I get cursed with elemental weakness, since curses last for 20 seconds in maps, which is crazy. I got some evasion and some deflection. I don't have all that much. I'm working on more. I think I'm at like 39% evasion and 14% deflection or something. But my budget is still garbage, so I'll get there eventually. I got some spirit as well, so I could fit in cast on crit with mana remnants. Check out the sick amulet that I rolled as well. This cost me like 8 chaos in total. I wish that I had +3 all or even +2 skill gems. It doesn't, but it's still sick, so I'm using it. The defensive layers are crazy. I started using Malagara's virtuosity since I'm going crit now. I need to get more crit still, and we'll probably do it either on my staff, if I can get a better staff. My staff is pretty good, or swap to a wand and focus. I'm not sure yet. I'm kind of digging the staff life though, so I might stick with that. Wand and focus is better, but again, my budget is trash. Nothing else game changing with items here. I'll get some breach rings eventually and keep upgrading the gear for more defenses and whatnot. I don't think it'll change too much for what I'm doing now. One final thing with item changes. I did some math, some calculations. It's a fairly long explanation. I'll probably go through the whole thing in a separate video where I explain everything about Frost Dart mechanics, how to juice the damage on it, everything that I figured out about Frost Darts. But the short story is plus to cold skills is slightly better for Frost Dart DPS than plus to all skills. Plus to all skills, you get a bunch of added flat damage from Flame Wall. But if you do all of the calculations, then what you get from the extra levels on Frost Darts is slightly more, especially when you factor in your increased cold damage. So, +2 cold skills is the way to go. Plus to all skills is slightly worse, but only slightly. And then it's plus to cold skills is way better for all of your other skills, since we're using all cold skills except for Flame Wall in this final iteration of the build. That's it for my day 3/4 update. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below or pop into my Twitch chat if you see me streaming. Always happy to answer questions there as well. And I'll catch you next time.